How's it going, everyone? My name is Nick, aka Nicky Bobby. Hip-hop music is very important in my daily life. It is my second favorite genre right after rock music. 10 years ago, when I was 13 years old, I became a passionate fan of this music. I was 14 when I started writing and recording my own raps on a laptop. I was totally convinced that I was going to be a famous rapper one day. I had even wrote and sent a letter to Aftermath Entertainment, I guess in hopes to establish some sort of connection. God, I wish I could go back and slap myself. My point is, I've been a diehard fan since I was 13, and I have a huge amount of respect for the artistry and history. In this video, I want to take you guys back in time and show you exactly how music had evolved to this point. Hopefully I can teach you a few things you might have not known before. My ultimate goal is to just shine a light onto the music that would eventually give birth to one of my favorite genres ever. Not much else for my intro here, so let's get into some history. It all started with jazz music. In 1917, the first jazz recording was released, which led to the genre's rise in popularity during the Jazz Age. Jazz vocalists began developing a new vocal technique that allowed for improvising melodies and rhythms. This vocal technique is called scatting. Scatting was sort of meant to mimic the bluesy and improvised stylings of jazz musicians. Though scatting had originated earlier in the century, the first modern jazz standard to employ scatting was Louis Armstrong's 1926 Heebie-Jeebies. Louis would also use scatting in his 1928 rendition of West End Blues. In the 1930s, a new form of jazz known as swing became popular. This subgenre featured big band arrangements that included heavy and funky drumming. This style of drumming is best exemplified by Benny Goodman's 1937 rendition of Sing Sing Sing. This style of drumming was very much the predecessor to funk music. In the 40s, along came a group known as the Jubalaires. They were known for incorporating rhythmic chants in their verses. Their 1946 song Noah is cited as the very first recorded rap.
Hey children, stop, still, and listen to me. God walked down to the brandy sea. He declared that he was the son of man, and then he decided to destroy the land.
Their music was heavily influenced by African spirituals, a form of gospel music that often uses chanting. These types of rhythmic vocals would lay down the foundation for what we understand as modern rap. But the hip-hop portion had not been realized at this point. There was still more music to come that would introduce signature elements. Also in the 1940s, a new form of jazz called bebop was realized. Bebop featured fast tempos, complex chord progressions, and instrumental virtuosity. It was originally meant to be musicians' music, which demanded close listening rather than dancing. It wasn't until the 50s when jazz musicians realized they could make bebop danceable. They created hard bop. This genre pulled influence from gospel and R&B, which allowed jazz drummers to improvise a lot of funky grooves at a slower tempo for a more loose performance. Hard bop was also known as funky hard bop. Many jazz drummers in the 50s were utilizing these funky drum parts in their performances. During that decade, West Coast jazz was created in response to bebop and hard bop. West Coast jazz was a very relaxed style and also featured these same percussions. Years later, in the mid-1960s, R&B musicians created funk music. They took nearly all the same ingredients of hard bop, like certain rhythms and chords. They were putting less emphasis on a melody and chord progression, but instead created a repeating groove that interlocks with the other instruments. The repetition of the groove, when played either slow or faster, creates somewhat of a hypnotic quality. In 1968, Pigmeat Markham released his song, Here Comes the Judge. Pigmeat was an entertainer known for his stand-up comedy and had a regular routine where he played the role of a judge for satire. He he decided to turn that routine into a comedy song that uses funk elements. His vocal delivery on this track is very much alike to what we would consider rapping.
Everybody, near and far, I'm going to Paris to stop this war. All those cats got to listen to me because I am the judge that you can plainly see.
Pigmeat utilized scat-like chants in his delivery instead of focusing on a melody. This might possibly be due to the fact that he wasn't a great vocalist. That's not meant to be a knock on this guy whatsoever. I think what he did here was actually quite groundbreaking. This song is what I would consider to be the very first modern rap song. 5 years later, in New York City, everything had led to a Jamaican DJ creating hip-hop as we know it. DJ Kool Herc threw a back-to-school party for his sister on August 11th, 1973. He isolated a drum break from a specific moment on 2 duplicate funk records, and then played the repeating groove on a loop as he switched back and forth between them. For all intents and purposes, DJ Kool Herc invented hip-hop music. Eventually, one of his friends, nicknamed Coke La Rock, started attending his parties and became the first MC to hop on the mic. His rap started out as simple shoutouts to people in the crowd, but gradually poetry began to emerge in the performance. Coke La Rock stated that his loose spoken word raps were influenced by the last poets. Hip-hop eventually became popular in New York City, but was still considered underground. Until 1979, when the Sugar Hill Gang released Rapper's Delight, hip-hop's first mainstream hit. And the rest is history.
Don't push me, cause I'm close to the edge. I ain't no joke. I used to let the mic smoke. Now I slam it when I'm done and make sure it's broke.
Also, I am aware that hip-hop music turned 50 years old this year. That is kinda crazy. I always kind of felt that hip-hop music was around forever, but you know, if you look at some music history, maybe it was always around. I want to give a big thanks to hip-hop music for changing my life forever. I am really glad that it stuck around. And thank you guys for watching this video. If you liked it, be sure to leave a like and a comment down below. I hope you guys learned a few things along the way. If you did know about these things, well then thank you for appreciating the history. If you haven't already, consider subscribing to my channel if you're interested in more content. Thank you guys again for watching. Be sure to tune in for the next video.